My name is David Silbert, and today I want to talk to you about something a lot of you have probably become familiar with in the past few weeks: working from home. In light of recent events, more and more people have been working remotely, including all of us here at the Predictive Index. As a remote-friendly office, we wanted to offer some insight and advice on how to make remote work as productive and effective as possible. To do this, I spoke with Josh Combest, our partner onboarding manager. Josh was a remote worker for 2 years at a past company and has some great tips for working from home. First up, what should your at-home work environment look like?
Usually when we work from home, we're doing it for a day or two and we just grab our laptops, the mouse that's in the bag and whatever, right? And we go home. If you're gonna be working from home for any extended period of time, and when I say extended, I mean if you're gonna work from home for 3 or more days, right, in a row, then you really want to think about how are you best set up in your existing work environment and how easily can you replicate that in your home environment. So for me, that means dual monitors that are on raised stands, because I'm going to have paperwork that I wouldn't usually have if I'm just working from home for a day. It means a docking station for my laptop. It means a wireless mouse and a separate wireless keyboard, because I keep my laptop closed and work off of dual screens. You know, so it means a lot of different things for different people. You're going to want to think about, do I have a printer at home? Am I going to need a printer? Do I need to scan things? So you want to look at apps that will allow you to scan, or having a printer that has a scanner. So you want to think through, how can I most effectively work in a way that is as similar to being in the office as possible and still be as productive. Different people, it means different things, but you want to look at the equipment, how you're set up at work, and look at how much of this should I and can I replicate in the home environment. One of the things that I noticed was I started snacking a lot more. My meals started being at weird times. The chair I was in, I started to hate and got a different one. So you want to think about, again, not just equipment, but the environment itself. Having water handy all the time is really good. Planning ahead for what snacks you know you should eat versus the ones that you shouldn't, because when you get snack hungry, you're gonna grab whatever's convenient in the house and you'll regret it later, right? Or I always did. So it's understanding, what do I need to have around? Sometimes it's noise canceling, it'll be soft music in the background. I don't get to do that at work all the time. I get to do that at home when I want. So you start to look at other things outside of office equipment. The chair you're gonna sit in is gonna be different than the one you have at work, more than likely. So you wanna think about, if I'm sitting in this chair, is this a good one for my back for all day? I might not have a standing desk at home while I have one at work. So you wanna think about doing this for multiple hours, for multiple days. How is this going to affect my physical and mental health? And kind of plan ahead for that, because in the moment you won't always make great decisions.
So you have a setup that's similar to what you're used to in the office. Even if you have the necessary equipment though, it won't do much good if you're not focused. Here's how to cut down on distractions when working at home.
This was really important, and for me, there was a learning curve, because I came directly from an open office environment to working from home. And so it took me a couple of months to really figure this out. One of the things that was really important for me was to have a workspace that was as separated as possible from the rest of the house. And I was fortunate to have a 3rd floor in the house that I live in, and was able to set up a home office up there completely separate from the rest of the house, with separate doors and everything else. So I was able to segregate myself a little bit from the rest of what was going on in the house throughout the day. I think that was the first important thing. I think the other was just to notify members of the house that what the business hours were, what my plans were for that day, so that they wouldn't feel like, since I was home, they could pop in and out whenever they wanted. So it was important for me also then to set expectations for people who were going to be at the house when I was there. Going back to what I mentioned before about this being something that took me a month or two to really get a handle on when it was new for me, one of the most important lessons I had to learn was setting and structuring my day in a way that I could manage it whether I was at home or not. What I mean is, I started my day at 8 o'clock, right? Or 7 o'clock, whenever I decided I was gonna start my work day. I acted like it was any other work day. Now, most of what you read about working from home will tell you this, but when you're new to working from home, it's very easy to be like, yeah, that makes sense, but whatever. And it was really important for my productivity. When I showed up to work in my sweats, which is easy to do when you're working from home, I have no video calls maybe that day, it's not a big deal, there's not a lot of pressure, I was more unproductive on those days. And a lot of it, in my opinion, had to do with mental preparedness. I really wasn't in a mental state of production and work. And so for me, it's planning my day, understanding when do I need to start my day, backtracking from there, and starting my day properly. A workout, shower, breakfast, dressing as if I'm going into the office, and then being at work. So even if I never leave my house for the whole day, I'm acting as if I am leaving my house for that day to go to work, and my production goes a lot higher. The same is true for the end of your day. One of the challenges I had was knowing how to cut my workday off because work was happening from home. And so one of the things that will be important, especially if you have a family at home, is to set those clear parameters, help communicate what the day is going to look like, and hold yourself accountable to stopping your workday at a certain time and shutting it down. It was very easy for me to take breaks from work and I'd eat lunch, and then I'd take a break from work and I'd eat dinner. I might play with the kids for a few minutes and I'd go right back to work because it was all set up at home. It was very convenient. And I ended up spending much more time in the office than I should have spent. And it was damaging to the home relationships. And so a warning I usually have for people who are going into a remote work environment for the first time or for an extended period of time is really set clear parameters for yourself on when work starts and when work stops, and hold yourself accountable for that.
Those are some useful tips and tools you can use to bring your most productive self to work, even if it's virtual. But that's only one part of the equation, yourself. What about how you interact with your peers? Josh gave his insights on the importance of good communication and meeting different people's needs during a remote work period.
So obviously not being in the office means I'm not sitting next to my colleagues every day. I have the benefit of working 15 feet from my boss and pop in all the time. So when I work from home, I don't have any of that. I and our company relies heavily on tools like Slack, email, Google Documents to leave notes, and we do a lot of Zoom meetings. So for us, it's only one mode of communication, is that face-to-face anyway. So you lose that, but you regain a little bit of it with a tool like Zoom. So trying to understand what the communication is will dictate the medium that we use. So if it's a quick, hey, how's it going? Like, what's up with this? That can be a Slack, right? If it's information download or request, maybe that's an email. If it's more of a discussion, then maybe I say, hey, do you have time for a quick Zoom call? And so the tools exist to make remote work very easy. So some of the people are going to be high in extroversion, right? At PI, we call that a high B. So someone who's high in extroversion wants that social interaction, wants that face-to-face time. And what we try to do a lot of here is we try to make as many of our meetings video meetings as opposed to audio only. During a time like this, when social isolation is what's expected and makes sense, we want to avoid, as those with high extroversion, we want to avoid getting together in groups. That's really where the risk exists. And so we try to get together in groups virtually. Video conferencing, adding an element of fun. Something that high extroverts like to do is they like to add a personal element into their interactions with other people. So when you're thinking of your home office setup, if you're a high extrovert, it doesn't have to be a sterile environment. You don't have to only be work. If the cat walks across your desk, the cat walks across your desk, right? Like it doesn't matter. And for those high in extroversion, those little personal touches to a virtual meeting add that element. They kind of check that box for having a good personal connection. So just understand, if you are high in extroversion or you're managing or working with people who are, that face-to-face time, even if done virtually, is much more important than getting everything done through email.
It's important to keep in mind who you're working with and what communication style is best for them. When in doubt, it never hurts to play it safe and over-communicate, especially when everyone's in the same boat.
Working from home is a great experience. I think as we move into the 21st century, this is going to become much more common. The gig economy, people are going to be working in environments that they set up for themselves. And so I would challenge you to embrace this. Take it as a learning experience and figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Take this into, as we hope that COVID-19 decreases quickly and moves out of the system very quickly, you'll have this great learning experience. Consider it a pilot into how did that go? What would I do differently next time? I can only speak to the experiences that I've had and with people I've worked with, and it only came from all of the bumps that I experienced through the first couple months of doing a 2-year work from home job. And so a lot of you out there have worked from for years, and you have experiences that are a little bit different than mine, and you have best practices that are a little bit different than mine. Be supportive of people who've never worked from home before. Understand that it can be a little bit anxiety ridden, like the need to get out, the need to breathe can exist as people begin to feel more and more closed in. So be supportive of that in your environment. Be supportive of that with people who haven't done work from home before. Understand that this is temporary. This isn't permanent. We're not in lockdown. Like, open the window, stick your head out and breathe if you need to, and learn from it, so that the next time if it were to happen again, or you were to move on in your career and into a role where working from home were a possibility or even a likelihood, that you would have some good best practices for what you need for that. Yeah.
That's it. We hope this video was helpful for those who are both new or veteran to remote work. Remember, communication is key, and your team will only be stronger for it. We have more content around remote work that you may enjoy and find useful down in the description. Stay healthy, and thank you for watching.